Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our members and our guests. I'm Cantor Lori Brock, and I'm so honored to be here this evening for this fantastic program. We are so blessed to have Richard White here this evening, and thank you, Michelle, for bringing him to us. Without generous members, programs like this wouldn't happen. I'm Possible, if you haven't read it, by Richard White, is an amazing book. I can't read but more than 5 or 6 or 7 pages a night because I have to take it in. It speaks to my heart and soul. It's opened my eyes, and thank you for writing this amazing book and sharing yourself with everyone. This evening and this week was made possible thanks to the Procacci family Artist in Residence Endowment. So I'd like to invite Joanne Procacci up to thank her and to present her with the gift of a signed copy of I'm Possible. Thank you so much to you and Phil, Joanne. We are blessed to have you as members for so many years, and as my neighbor, thank you so much. And Margie and Maurice, if you're out there, Margie and Maurice Plow, were also very generous to this program, so we have a signed book for you. We're going to ask that you all take a moment and turn off your cell phones and keep your masks on. It's my pleasure to turn the program up to our wonderful Rabbi Jessica Spitalnik-Mates.
I resonate with Cantor Brock. If you are in the hottest Florida day and you are reading Richard's book, he will transport you to the coldest Baltimore day on the streets. And if your belly is full, he will make you hungry with his description of his hunger growing up. This book takes you places you could never imagine. It brings you to the saddest lows and the highest highs. And Richard, you just wove something so beautiful together, and it's an honor to have you here. Dr. Richard Antoine White, a long-time dear friend of Cantorial Soloist Michelle Auslander Cohen, is a tuba professor at the University of New Mexico and the principal tuba player of 2 orchestras in New Mexico. He thinks Florida is very humid because I've been with him a lot this week. This is nothing. You have no idea. Come in August. You will see. His story began as a child of a teenage alcoholic mother who grew up homeless on the streets of Baltimore. Thanks to a village of incredible people, Richard is the first African-American man to receive a doctorate in tuba and has just released a best-selling memoir, I'm Possible, a story of survival at tuba and a small miracle of a big dream. Richard speaks around the world, telling his story of hope and survival to inspire hope, and has recently been interviewed by all the news channels, including CBS, The Today Show, and Trevor Noah, and tonight he's here with us. And he will be interviewed this evening by our own cantorial soloist, Michelle Auslander Cohen, his dear friend, who appears on page 191 of the book, if you haven't read it yet, along with her parents. Michelle is a native of Skokie, Illinois. As a young adult, she pursued an operatic career, attending prestigious vocal programs such as the Peabody Conservatory, Indiana University, and the Sarasota and Cincinnati Young Artist Program. Michelle has earned esteemed awards, including Fellowship Artist to the Brevard Music Center and an Encouragement Award from the Metropolitan Opera Association. In 2007, Michelle delved into the world of composing and produced and performed her first CD called The Music in Me. In 2010, she was recognized by Shalshelet, the Foundation of New Jewish Music, for 2 of her original compositions. Her pieces are also published in Transcontinental Publishing's Shabbat anthologies and are sung here many a Friday night. She has been a cantorial soloist at Temple Beth El for about 10 years and recently completed her certification as a life coach with a focus on spirituality. I give you Dr. White and cantorial soloist Michelle Auslander Cohen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Just wanted to say a few words before we begin our interview. Thank you to the Procacci family, and thank you to Margie and Maurice Plow, who helped make this week possible. So a few words before we begin. Some of you may be thinking to yourself, wow, this is such a great story, but I'm not totally sure what this fairly large black man from Baltimore who plays tuba has to do with me, my Jewish self living in Boca Raton, Florida. So I'd like to offer this to that sentiment. At the core of what we learn in Judaism is ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. I'm sure you know what that means, right? Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha means to love your neighbor as yourself. So important to us is this concept that it literally is the theme of our lobbies, that when you walk in, you see our beautiful tapestries that display all sorts of kind of love. Love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't say love your neighbor, but only if they have the same values as you. And it doesn't say love your neighbor, but only if they dress like you. And it doesn't say love your neighbor, but only if they have the same skin color as you. Our neighbors are not just the people who live in the beautiful homes next door to us. Our neighbors are all fellow human beings, all of them. And our neighbors are also the people standing all day and begging for money on Glades and 441. And our neighbors are the homeless people who live under the pier on our beaches. We must see Richard and everyone around us as our neighbor and look at their stories as our story too, if we are going to have the chance to truly make this world a better place. Judaism teaches that each person has a story, a Torah, their own to share. Jewish or not, the Torah of Richard's life is one that resonates deeply with ours. You will never meet anyone who works harder on a daily basis to grow without limitations and to be the best possible version of himself. And you will never meet anyone more dedicated to what's called tikkun olam, making the world a better place. This is something that Richard works on every single moment of every day for everyone. And this is why I wanted to bring Richard to our community, to inspire us as individuals and as a people to grow beyond what we thought was possible, to learn from him, and to feel inspired to push down on the gas pedal on our individual paths of self-discovery so that we can truly become who we were meant to be and live our best, most authentic lives. And now we will begin our interview. Okay, so we know a lot about Dr. Richard Antoine White, and we've heard a lot about his story. But I thought we could spend just a few minutes hearing from him to paint a picture for us of what your life was like when you first came into the world.
Wow, when I first came into the world, I was premature. I weighed just over a pound. You could put me in your hand and close it. All I can say about that is I'm glad I got a ticket to this thing called life. And I think when you're blessed to have a ticket to this thing called life, you owe. And what I mean by owe, you constantly should be blessed and pay it forward. And by that I mean you should have an open circle. So that means you're always paying it forward, and then when you need help, because we're all gonna need help, someone will be into that circle and help you. I've never been angry about the life or the hand I was dealt. It was the hand I was dealt, and I played it to the best of my ability. Born premature, weighing just over a pound, eaten by rats in an abandoned house. I still bear the scar. Eating out of trash cans, storing food under my tongue because I didn't know if I would eat again. So I would chew a little bit and just put it in my tongue. And if I didn't find food later, I would go and chew that food. Just like any other kid, every day I woke up and my job was to play and be a kid. But I had some jobs that other kids didn't have, and that included finding my mom. And sometimes, most of the time, I was successful, but the times that I wasn't successful at finding her, I ended up sleeping on a cardboard box under a tree or in an abandoned building. And one day in the late 70s, I couldn't find her. And I was found frozen. I crawled in. If you're from Baltimore, you know, we have these things called vestibules. They have marble steps, which are very nice. I crawled into this space. The next morning, I was with authorities. I remember yellow covers and just as much tea as anyone could ever drink. They said, well, we need to intervene here because if we don't, we may find him dead. So thus, I was sent to live with my legal guardians, my adopted parents, and they disciplined me, and the rest is kind of history. I could go on more, but I want to make sure we get all of your questions in there. I'm grateful because I definitely believe that every person, every stranger, every mentor, every teacher, my adopted parents helped me. And now more than ever, I believe in the term, it takes a village. And I'm very grateful for the village that helped me. I would be a fool to say I did it all on my own. Look at me, I'm successful. I'm glad they all pushed me in the right direction. And sometimes that included tough love.
Right, so you got off the streets, you were adopted. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'll cut this one off.
There, it's on.
Use this up.
It's on. Try again.
Testing 1, 2. Okay, excellent.
Okay, so we understand that those first 6 years you were on the streets and then you finally got adopted. So we have to assume that that couldn't have been the easiest transition to go from living on the streets to living all of a sudden with a roof over your head and food available to you. So can you describe some of the challenges that you faced once you had a home and a family?
It was unbelievable. First of all, I was angry. I didn't see this as a blessing. I saw this as, hey, you took me from the one person I love more than anything in this world, my mom. I didn't care about all the luxury of life. It was just me and mom. So when I got to this family, first of all, they were really brilliant. They raised me with the fear that when I became of age, 18, that I would leave. So that means that if it was a jug of milk, they put some milk in a jar so I could make my own cereal and do all these things. But coming to this house was unbelievable. First of all, they ate 3 meals a day. They would feed me a sandwich. I would take half of it and stick it in my pocket. And they'd be like, no, if you want another one, you just ask for it. I'm like, yeah, right. So I kept that sandwich in my pocket. And because I was so angry, I didn't want to talk to them. Kids can be unbelievably determined. So I talked to myself in the mirror for years. In essence, I think that's one of the things that helps me be a great musician today, is that I develop an extraordinary imagination by talking to myself. And I would do that in the mirror. Things like having a bath and putting on these things called pajamas. They would put these pajamas on me, put me in the bed, and I would take them off and put my dirty clothes on and end up on the floor. One night, my dad comes in, Wheezy, I think the boy's sick. He built a respirator machine. And it's like, no, he's just sleeping on the floor, because that's where I was most comfortable. So all the things that we take for granted sometimes, I didn't have a bed to know what it was for. Or I didn't have a bed often enough to know that it was more comfortable than the floor. The floor was my comfortable space. And I think also, Michelle, in that time, I learned, I say in my book too, I want everyone to read my book and feel like you are a superhero, because I believe superheroes are void of limitations. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to establish my imagination. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to have hardships at an early age, because the one thing it taught me is to give myself a hug. And I think we all need to realize that every now and then, you have to give yourself a hug. Every now and then, you are going to fail. No one is immune to failing. And you have to forgive yourself, and you have to move on. I know we can talk about this later, but I have an acronym that I've lived my whole life by. And failing to me is finding an intended lesson in needed growth. Every time I fail, I think, oh, I failed because it's something I needed to know that I didn't know. But now I know it, look out. And then I apply to that. The best part about every day, whether it's a good day or a bad day, is that I'm not done yet.
That's one of my favorite things that he says, is the best part of, even at the end of every day, is, oh, I'm not done yet, right? Right, if we all could go to bed feeling that kind of excitement, say, hey, I'm not done yet, we could, which is amazing. So now we've had the beginning of your life, we had what sort of transitioned you off of the streets into a home. I know many of us have read the book and seen the documentary, but could you also just explain how you found music and what changed in your life for you after you found music?
Yeah, so music was introduced in my life. Some magical person came to school and they could make a sound on all the instruments. And they were like, which one do you want to play? And so I nudged my best friend Dante. I said, hey man, we ought to pick trumpet. It only got 3 valves. It's gotta be easy. Boy, was I wrong. So we started our journey playing trumpet, and I was not succeeding. In 4th grade, I was failing. And I had already repeated 1st grade because of the transition from the foster homes and all that. But they said, I think he's too big to fail. And so my parents said, well, we're gonna take this trumpet and you're not getting it back until you change your grades. Boy, I wanted that trumpet back because for me, music was the first place where I felt a sense of belonging, a sense of I could tell my story and it's not complicated by words. I just play this instrument. So I did everything I could to get that trumpet back. And I'm happy to say I've never repeated a grade since then. I wish I could say I never failed a class since then, but that's just not true. But I'm always swinging. And I think music gave me a community. Music gave me a sense of togetherness. And by togetherness, I mean, we have to remember that each individual is important because they're an individual. And each team is important because of the individuals that make up the team. I know we've heard that before. So music gave me a team. Music gave me a way to express that wasn't complicated, and it allowed me actually to tap into my emotions that in some ways, if I'm really transparent and honest, that I really didn't understand. But it didn't matter because it made me feel a certain way. And I want everyone here to know that you're allowed to feel the way you feel. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to check your personality or your emotions at the door. Guess what? You're on this planet because you're you. So be you. I guarantee you no one else is gonna do that better than you. So, and that's what music allowed me to do. It allowed me to be me, whether I was a nerd or music geek or whatever. And I'm very grateful, and we share that.
Yes, we do share that. So now we know that you found the trumpet, and then you went to euphonium, right? Mm-hmm. And then you eventually found your way to the tuba.
Yes.
And you went to this very esteemed school called Baltimore School of the Arts.
Yes.
And one of my favorite stories that you tell is that you heard there were auditions going on, and you showed up not on the day of the audition, but yes, after the audition on a Saturday.
Right.
So could you tell us that story?
Yes, so first of all, I got to middle school, and it was 30-some trumpets, and I was like number 18, and I was like, this ain't working out, this trumpet thing. I looked up and saw only one sousaphone, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want to play that, because there's only one. So I would crawl into this Frankenstein chair, because I was too small to hold the tuba, and thus my journey with tuba started. And so I wish we could bring back, if we could advocate for one thing, I think we need to bring back vocational tech schools. I just believe in it. I think it gives people empowerment, it gives them a skill to create. So I was supposed to go to Carver Vocational Tech School, be a carpenter, and play football. But I broke my hip, and was like, well, what, I got this sousaphone, I guess. I'm going to the Baltimore School for the Arts. I had just decided that I was going to Baltimore School for the Arts. So literally, I walked into the room and said, Dad, I'm going to audition for the Baltimore School for the Arts. He said, all right, you gonna call him, yada, yada. I was like, no, we're going right now. He said, what? Okay. My dad is real laid back. He's like, okay. He drops me off, School for the Arts. Bear in mind, I just broke my hip. I'm wearing a sousaphone. The bell is on my head like a hat. And I got 2 crutches. So I'm knocking on the door, ringing, hey, ain't nobody here. And the director just happens to be there this day. And he said, excuse me, what are you doing here? And I said, I came to audition. He said, excuse me, auditions was yesterday. I don't know where it came from. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, but I'm here now. And he said, the audacity or the level of determination made him say, I need to hear this young man. So we walk upstairs. I play this little Mozart thing that I had learned by rote, meaning someone played it. Because you got to keep in mind, and I'm going to test ages of people here. You know how I learned to play tuba? On a cassette tape. Hello, this is the tuba. Boop, this is B flat. Pause the tape. When you have mastered B flat, continue the tape. Boop, boop, this is B flat C. That's how I learned to play tuba. So I played my little Mozart thing. The director goes, do you know what this is? I said, yeah, man, that's this. He said, yeah, but do you know what the note name is? I said, man, I said is this. So he said, so you don't know what that's called? No, it's this. He said, well, let me try this. He went to the piano and played something. He said, can you play that back? I was like, yeah. And so I played it back. He said, hold on. He went, talked to the other music people, came back and said, you must be the luckiest kid on the planet. We're going to accept you into the School for the Arts. To give you statistics of that, first of all, it's easier to get in the MBA than it is to get an orchestral job. Baltimore School for the Arts hears 600 kids in one audition season, and from that 600, they will accept 35. So thus, my musical career began at the Baltimore School for the Arts, where I met the likes of Tupac, Jada Pinkett, very stars in. I had a very practical mind. Some things in the book, I don't want to give the book too much away, but certain things happened at the Baltimore School for the Arts. It's just Richard's brain. My friend Dante goes, hey man, you know what? You need to do better. What'd you get on the test? I said, I got a 72. I'm passed, man, I'm happy. He said, I got a 98. Man, you need to do better. I said, Dante, look here, come close. He said, what? I said, look, when you graduate and I graduate and they hand out our diplomas, yours gonna say the same thing as mine. And they're gonna say you got a 98 on the math test. Right? He said, oh my goodness, he is right. He started practicing trumpet more because of that conversation. And now he's the band leader for Queen Latifah, Justin Timberlake, and writing soundtracks in Hollywood. So go Dante and go Richard White for telling the truth.
All right, so your journey then continued
Yes.
to Peabody Conservatory.
Yes.
Right, which we'll talk about later, but that's where you and I first met, was at
Yes.
Peabody. And then eventually you went to Indiana, and then you became the famous Dr. Richard Antoine White because you got a doctorate of tuba playing at Indiana.
Yes.
So just a little bit more about that time period of your life that I wanted to pick your brain about. One of the things that you often hear Richard saying is, well, I just played the hand that I was dealt.
Yes.
Right? So I think that that's such a hard concept for people to actually put into action, because sometimes when we're not happy with the hand that we're dealt, we feel angry and bitter and upset and frustrated and all these things, which doesn't allow us to move forward. But you kind of had this natural ability to say, hey, this is what I've got, so I better make the best of it.
Yes.
So you just seem to value growth instinctively.
I do. I want people to take away a few things, and I say this in my speech. Remember this. Great people aren't born great. They grow great. You know, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So just start. You know, when I have this attitude of in spite of. Oftentimes we hear too much. Because of this, because of that, I can't do this. Because I don't have the financial resources, oh, because I don't have the time, I can't do this. I go, in spite of not having money, in spite of not having the resources, in spite of not having time, how about I just show you that I can do it? And that's my attitude. I'm just gonna show you. We don't need to talk about it. I don't need you to tell me how much of an advantage or disadvantage I have. I'm just going to show you that I can do it. When I started at Peabody, I didn't know you were supposed to have a computer or this thing called a typewriter. Everyone was turning in papers. I was like, what? We supposed to do that? So I would print as neat as I could and then pay another student to type my paper because I didn't have a computer or typewriter. I never went, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm always looking for how I can do it. There's always a point that you can start. Sometimes my students will go, oh, Dr. White, I think it's over. I can't do it. I'm gonna call New York. I heard trash men make 6 figures in New York. And I'll go, calm down, calm down. I was like, play the first note. They'll play the first note. And I go, pretty good. I say, play the last note. They play the last note. They go, look, we got the beginning, we got the end. All we got to do is work on the middle. Oh my gosh, Dr. White, I never thought about it like that. So there's always something you can do. At Peabody, I was the first at doing things. You'll read this in the book. I had phobia because no one looked like me. I would go to theory class and I'd be like, it ain't all the black people here. I feel weird. And so I went to the dean. Luckily, he had good ears. He said, what's the problem? I was like, I feel different. I was like, and why don't you have jazz here? And he goes, well, Richard, this is the Peabody Conservatory. It's the oldest conservatory in the country. I was like, but by not having jazz, you're telling me that my music and my heritage is not important. And he said, you got a point. Now Peabody has one of the best jazz programs in the country. And I'm thankful that he listened. Thank you. So what I want to say about that is that sometimes in life, we don't understand the difference between recognizing and acknowledging. We see the homeless person on the street every day because we recognize they're right there. But to acknowledge them would simply be to stop and say, hello, how are you doing? And that costs us nothing, but it shows them that they exist and they matter. So I'm thankful for Peabody for showing me that I exist and I matter. I'm also thankful for Peabody for telling me the truth. I turned in my first history paper and quote, Lord, honey, this will not do. Let me get a map. Here's the directions to the writing tutorial service down the street at Johns Hopkins. You need to go. I said, okay, I'll go tomorrow. No, you need to go right now. So I moseyed on down to the writing tutorial service. And then I thought they would teach me how to write, but they didn't. They were like, have you read Sounder? No. Have you read Call of the Wild? No. Here's a list of books you need to read. And because my writing wasn't efficient enough because I just didn't have the vocabulary. And they were smart enough to do that, and they were honest to tell me that you need to do this. Something else I want to really say. I never believe in well-intended tokenism. Don't lower the bar of excellence. It is where it is, and what we need to do is provide the resources for children to compete at the level of excellence. Thank you. And so I'm glad Peabody was honest with me, but what I learned from Peabody and my teacher is that the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off, but you'll be better for it afterwards. Quickly, I don't want to talk too long, but after Peabody, I went to Indiana, and it was one of the most competitive schools ever. And I learned a few things at Indiana, all these great tuba players. I'm just like, wow, I didn't know tuba could do that. I'm in trouble. What I learned from all these talented people is that, okay, someone will always be more talented than me. But I said, but you know what? None of you are going to outwork me. And that was my magic. That was my magic. I was like, you're more talented than me, but I am going to get here at 6 o'clock every day and work. And I think sometimes we are afraid in life to go to the point of exhaustion. At Indiana, I learned to go to the point of exhaustion, meaning I learned to give it all I got. Sometimes I fail. But you know what? At the point of exhaustion, when I gave it all I got, it was a new day because then I had to think of the next step. I had to be somebody different because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you'll keep getting what you've been getting. I had to be somebody different. I had to do something that would elevate me. And by doing that, it became contagious. Everyone around me started elevating. I'm like, whoa, is that how this works? That really is how it works. I offer the world my very best. You offer the world your very best. Together, that has to equal something magnificent. From Peabody, Indiana, master's, Indiana doctorate, you ought to get a doctorate. I don't want no stinking doctorate, man. I'm done with school. I'm going to be a millionaire by a couple years, just 30. Just give me 2 more years, right? Everybody wants to be a millionaire by 30. Mr. P was like, nah, Rich, I never said this. I've seen you work with students. I think it's meant for you to be a teacher. I'm like, meant for me to be a teacher? So I call up Mr. Phillips, my mentor. I said, Mr. Phillips, I'm done with Indiana, man. I'm going. I ain't getting no doctorate, man. And he looked me straight in the face and said, have you done everything there is for your instrument in this state? I said, excuse me? Have you done everything there is for your instrument in this state? No, sir. Oh, and you're going to tell me you're done? I left going, what orchestras are? They got all these orchestras in Indiana? And I played with every single one of them. When I left Indiana in 2004, I was able to call Mr. Phillips and say, Mr. Phillips, I'm leaving. I think I've done everything I need to do in this day, including getting a doctorate, right?
So one of the things that I feel like I hear you say is that there was so much potential for you to have what people call limiting beliefs about yourself. You know, there's so much potential to say, no, I came from this and this is hard and I don't know how to do this. And it could have been so easy to label yourself differently than you did, right? Because a lot of times we put these beliefs on ourselves that, no, that's not possible. I can't do that. It's too hard for me. But you seem to have been this like force of love and change and meaning and motivation. And I'm like wondering, what do you think contributed to that?
I think honestly, and this is going to sound a little bit Walt Disney, I think it's my heart. I think it's thousands of problems in the world, but I think 99% of them can be solved if we were just kind to one another, and I was allowed to be kind to myself. And I think I had some very tough decisions to make. I think I was also blessed with a perception where, you know, when this story came out in a documentary, my friends was like, how did I not know this about you? Because my name is Richard Antoine White. My name is not Richard Antoine White, the homeless kid. I didn't want it to be my identity. You know, and I think sometimes we get so caught up in societal decorum that we become prisoners of the past. I chose to be a pioneer of my future. And my path didn't look like anyone else's, but I made that decision not to be angry. I made that decision to be kind. I made that decision to base everything I did on merit. And I think that's how I'm not angry. And then I realized that this world, I'll share this because I think it's important, and I know you'll probably talk about it later. I think it's meant for us to live together. It's a fascinating word for me because when I break it down, I'm like, to get her together, wow. And to me, that means to get Lady Liberty. Doesn't mean the textbook description that we see Lady Liberty in. To me, Lady Liberty means chance, choice, and change. What we all really want is just a chance to make the right choices, to see the kind of change that's for the betterment of all.
So you also talked about this idea that you gave yourself a hug and that you were kind to yourself and you had like all of this self-love that you gave yourself. So I'm wondering, what does self-care for Richard look like today? Like, what do you do to take care of yourself?
Self-love is laced with the truth. I gotta share a story. In the book, you'll read this. Once I took some auditions, like I think 11 of them, and I got 11 rejection letters. And you know what I did with those rejection letters? I put them all around the wall in my room so I could see them every morning with a note above my head, my pillow on the ceiling that said, when you don't feel like practicing, remember these. The next year, I got into every single festival I auditioned for. It was the truth. It was a reminder. Sometimes I think we lack the strength to forgive ourselves. We lack the strength to be honest with ourselves. Honestly, I think this great country we live in, if we were just honest about what we did, how we did it, boy, we would be so far ahead. We've never been honest about the things that have happened and the things that we did. So I think if we start with truth, that allows you to love yourself. You know, and I think you have to love yourself and then spread the love. The first love of my life, I don't care what anyone says, is me, myself, and I. And I talk to those three people every day with honesty, with integrity, and truth. I also believe that when we tell the truth, we always want to tell the truth with integrity. And you want to stand up for what you believe. I gotta share my Lion King story. So I get a call from California. And they're like, hey, how you doing, Richard? I said, I'm doing great. Why is he calling me from California? We want you to play the Lion King. I said, yeah, Lion King, wow. Wait a minute. You know I live in New Mexico, right? Yeah, we know where you live. Just play this. So I call my friends in LA. Hey, Doug, am I taking money off your table, man? Because I got a call to play the Lion. He said, that's kind of weird. Doug goes back, investigates, comes back and says, yeah, Richard, you should do it. It's a black thing. I said, it's a what thing? is a black thing. I was like, what? I was like, okay. When did Hans Zimmerman hear me play? Oh, he's never heard you play. Oh, okay, no worries. When did he see my resume? He's never seen your resume. Take my name off this list, please. I cry every July 1st when they get those royalty checks, but I stood up for what I believe and withheld my own integrity, because you should acknowledge that I exist at least enough to see my name on a resume, right? I don't need the well-intended tokenism. So the principles that I live by every day, I do work as hard as I can. Sometimes she'll tell you to a fault. I used to work so much and give so much to others that I ended up in ICU every October. I was just that sick, just trying to say yes to everyone. I've learned to love myself. I've learned to forgive myself. I've learned to accept the fact that success and failure are equally important. Every day when I wake up, the first thing I do is look up an inspirational or helpful quote. And I feel like that's a conversation with myself. Something very simple, another principle I live by, even if it's just yawning or drinking a glass of water, I try to be better at one thing every day, so that at the end of the year, I just want to be able to say, haha, I got better at 365 things. It's just a gift that you can give to yourself.
Okay, so we're going to move on just for maybe 5 minutes.
Yes.
We thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about the two of us.
Yes.
Right? So how did we come into each other's lives?
Yes.
Right? We started out, we went to Peabody Conservatory together, and we were friends. And then I left Peabody after 2 years because I decided that they didn't know how to teach voice the way I thought they should as a 20-year-old that was very opinionated. But then, as chance would happen, we both ended up at Indiana University, and that's really when we found a lot of time that we were able to spend together. And one of the things that we did a lot together was eat. We ate a lot, and Richard became exposed to Ashkenazic Jewish food, right? He had never had a bagel with cheese before, and what else did we do?
Oh, we had a ritual every weekend. We would go get brownies and ice cream because it made the world better.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say that this is a dear friend, dear friendship. And I don't know if you all know, but all this history I'm making would not have been possible without her parents. I was practicing as hard as I can in Indiana, and I was like, oh, they got this audition in New Mexico. I can't go. She said, why? You said you were sounding good. I said, I can't afford the plane ticket. She's like, well, let me just ask my parents. I said, what? Is that how Jewish people roll? What do you? She's like, no problem. I just call them up. I was like, oh, boy, let me get the popcorn. I know how this gonna go. She calls her parents up, and they said, sure. Young man should express himself and take the audition. I was like, wow. Wow. She's like, they said it's no problem. So I go to New Mexico. I'm thinking, wow, it's meant for me to be here. I advance, and then literally I'm sitting in the semifinals thinking, this may never happen again. I should win. And I won. So in front of everyone here today, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being kind. Thank you. Thank you. So the point here is we could have focused on our differences. Oh, you're Jewish, I'm from the hood, whatever. Our friendship, music brought us together. We chose to focus on our commonality. You like Bach? I like Bach too. You move your hands when you listen to Bach? Me too. Whoa, you like Brahms? Whoa. Let's listen to St. Matthew's Passion and make a dinner. He's like, okay. And that's really how our friendship started. And I think we can all learn from that. We could have focused on how different she is, how different I am, but we chose to focus on our commonality, which is our humanistic characteristics, our kindness of characteristics, our ability to stop, look, and listen to one another. And to this day, our friendship is worth anything more than you could ever have in this world that was less than pure value. And I want to say pure value because I believe our friendship comes within. Thank you.
So, Richard is gifted with a very deep sense of empathy. And one of the things that I wanted you to talk about a little bit is in our preparation for tonight, I realized that it kept coming up that you talked about how you visited the Holocaust Museum multiple times, that you kept going back to the Holocaust Museum. And I wanted to take a few minutes to have you tell us about what drew you there and what drew you to keep going back there.
The truth can be ugly. Every time I go to the Holocaust Museum or I go to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, I leave with a profound understanding, this is the world I live in. I kept going back to the Holocaust Museum because I wanted to feel connection to history that just seems to be swept under the rug. And somehow I was connected to the Jewish community just as I'm connected to the African American community with just this great sense of loss and triumph. I think every person sitting in here, it's a sad story, but it's also a triumphant story because you're sitting here, you're making a decision, you exist. I go back, and last time we went, it was surreal because we went to the Holocaust Museum in DC, and then we got on a plane the next day and went to Germany and visited some of the sites. I keep going back because I need to be reminded of both the beautiful and the ugly side of mankind. So we never forget that we have a lot of work to do. And I think if you don't understand or you're not connected to it, you're not gonna understand just the amount of work we need to do, the amount of forgiveness we need to have, the amount of kindness we need to have. So for me, I go back to the Holocaust Museum and the Civil Rights Museum because I want to be connected to the truth. I don't want anyone to tell me the truth. I don't want to imagine the truth. I want to go see the truth. I want to confront the truth, and I want to live that truth so I can truly make a difference. And that's why I keep going back.
It's so amazing. I was also hoping you would talk a little bit about what I know you talk about in your book that many of us have read, but that you did the slave reenactment in Indiana. Although, like, on a lighter note, so yes. Right when we were in Bloomington, Indiana, and when you flew into Indianapolis, it was about a 40-minute drive from Indianapolis to Bloomington, and you have to go through a town called Martinsville. And Martinsville is like the home of the KKK. And I remember I was newer to Indiana, and I don't know what was happening, but we were driving together from like the airport going to Bloomington, and you said, we've got to duck down when we go through Martinsville because we're both in trouble if they see us. You know, and I mean, we're laughing at it now, but you did a very powerful experience in Indiana that you could maybe talk about.
It's good that we can laugh about it because I was thinking, they're going to think I kidnapped her. I said, I'm not, no, right? So my friend Tony Niffen, principal Tuba of the Indianapolis Symphony, called me up. He had an unexpected, tragedy in his family, so he had to leave. And he said, you want to do this slave reenactment? I said, sure. I'm thinking, okay, this is a little cute little thing. So we start with a film, they tell you about slavery, and then they start saying, we're gonna give you these mercy flags. I was like, mercy flag? Let me sit up. What would I need a mercy flag for? And so we start acting, and this is a 2.5 hour, maybe even 3 hour event. We go, we're riding outside, and it's a hustle, like all this ruckus going on. We get to the slave port, and they're like, you over here, you're a good breeder. You know, you will be a good horse worker, a good ox worker, or whatever. And I was like, this is insane. And so right then, some women threw the white flag because later on I found out they were unaware that slavery was about more than just free labor. Because they were put in a line called, you be a good breeder. And I was like, whoa. And so that moment I was like, well, maybe I should get out of this. But I'm thinking, it's nothing I'm gonna go through here that's gonna equal what my ancestors went through. And then 2 amazing things happened. One, I had the ring on, I didn't take it off. And the person was like, "Are you a thief? How did you get that ring?" I was like, "No, sir, family heirloom." "Oh, so your family rich? Are you lying to me, boy?" And in that moment, I thought, there is no right answer. It doesn't matter what I say. And then the next thing that happened, you're supposed to keep your head down. Someone said, "Pick your head up. Look at me, boy." I picked my head up, and it was an African-American woman. I went, whoa, I didn't read that in any book, right? So my mind is blown. And then we're walking. Tony's son drops the wood, and he's in trouble. And I've never felt so helpless. They said, "Okay, now you stand here." We all had to pick up the wood, drop up the wood, pick up the wood, drop off the wood. It's all because of me. He had to say it's all because of me. And I felt so helpless. I was like, I never thought about this. I can't help you. Because if I help you, they gonna kill all of us. I was like, there ain't no book telling me this. So anyways, we go on a slave ride, and they're like, "Don't talk to anyone." I'm like, this is very clear. Don't talk to anyone. That's black and white as it gets. We stop and we talk to people. And guess what? We got captured. Now, this is a reenactment, but I'm fuming at this point. He said, "Don't talk to nobody." Now we're in trouble. Slave owner, another thing, told me something, blew my mind. He said, "Look, I came from the South to work here. I lost a daughter crossing the river. Every day I'm at house after house trying to get a job, and I cannot get a job. I'm a good, religious man. I live by the rules, and I can't get a job because of free labor." Whoa, I didn't read that in any history book either. So you actually want a job, you're trying to get a job the right way, and can't get one because of slavery. Mind blown. And then the next thing that happens is he goes away, and then we're having a discussion as a group. Should we leave? We shouldn't leave. Oh, we can't go anywhere. I said, I don't know what y'all doing, but last time I listened to y'all and we got captured, I'm leaving. So I left, and then we had to go into the Underground Railroad house. And these good, kind people helped us, fed us biscuits. I don't know what that was, but imagine being my size in houses built back then. I was in there like this. I was like, this is unbelievable. And then the last thing I want to share from this slave reenactment is that we get to the inn and we meet some slaves, and they said, "Look, we have to hide our papers because someone could walk in here and just rip them up, and then we're not free anymore." Mind blown. It was the most incredible thing I've ever been through. Can't experience that in any history book. I want to advocate that every state has something like that, because I think it's the truth. I think going through that also gives you the ability to understand that we can never go there again, ever, ever. And I think it puts a capitalization on ever when you experience that. It was one of the most incredible things in my life. I'm grateful that I did it. I will talk to a professional at some point about it. Right now, I just talked to my wife about it, and she's a very good listener. But if they haven't disbanded the program, Conner Prairie Slave Reenactment, it is unbelievable. And after the end of it, we had a debriefing. So you had to talk, and that was incredible because I've never received so many hugs in my life. They just said, "I just want to hug you." And I mean, we're talking about Quakers, religious people of all sorts. They just gave me a hug and said, "I learned so much here." And they were crying because they didn't know, how everybody else was thinking. And in that moment, in the debriefing, I learned, we're all humans. Why do we keep making these distinctions of Richard White, the black tuba player, Michelle, the white singer? I'm like, you're just a human singer. I'm just a human tuba player. I can't wait to the day where we're all just humans. Because as long as we keep identifying and breaking these barriers down and not focusing on our commonalities, we're always going to have problems. And we're always going to be against each other. But you know what? There's a such thing as tradition in addition to. We don't have to choose. Let's respect the good traditions that we have, but in addition to it, let's move on. Let's move forward. You don't forget the past. You don't pretend that it doesn't exist. That is tradition, whether it's good or bad. We acknowledge that tradition, and then we move forward together. Thank you.
So one last thing, and then I think we'll do a few minutes if anyone has a question, and then we'll eventually end with Richard playing some tuba for us. But one last thing I just wanted to mention that we also happen to have in common is that we both did some work with this life coaching thing. We didn't, neither of us knew that we were both doing it, but we were both doing it at the same time, which tends to happen to us. But one of the things that you worked on with that program was that you spent months trying to put into a few words what you felt your life's purpose is. So I'm wondering if you could talk about that a little. What do you feel your life's purpose is?
So just like anything, I'm signing up for this life coach. I'm like, what is this, man? I'm paying all this money for this life coach. What are you taking me to school, man? I'm gonna get a lawyer, right? And then somewhere throughout the course, it got serious. I'm crying. I'm like, I ain't mean to do that. What's happening? This is serious. I'll just say with everyone in here that the purpose of my book is to inspire hope. That's what I learned from the life course, that my life mission is to, I was like, this couldn't be more on the money. In that life coaching, I learned a few things because they gave us an exercise where you had to write your eulogy, your obituary. And you had to say what your colleagues would say, what your family would say, and what your friends would say. And I don't know if it's because of my background, but I had the hardest time writing about what my family would say. And I'm like, boy, this is probably something I need to dive into. And then we talked about something called the boogeyman. And what I learned in this life station is that, oh my gosh, I gotta go to the basement of my own being. I gotta go dig up the roots. There's no boogeyman down there. Only thing I'm gonna find down there is the truth. So we started exploring the roots of myself. And boy, it ain't all pretty. But I think we all have to go to the basement because that's the core of who we are. And that's what the foundation of how we exist are. And if we need to tweak a few things, we can do it. I learned that in this class, that it's okay to go to the basement. It's okay to dig up those roots. And then once you find those roots, you know what we need to do? We need to nourish them. We need to feed them. What I learned in this course, like, oh my gosh, I haven't identified the roots. I haven't nourished them. And I learned in that, okay, if I have all this good and all this bad, what's gonna grow the most? The one that I feed the most. I've been feeding the bad, the negativity, so I need to start watering over here. And that's what I learned in that course, that my purpose in life is to inspire hope and that I need to feed the goodness that's in my heart. Because if I feed that and starve the bad, eventually the bad is gonna starve itself out.
So what kind of advice would you give people who are working on trying to figure out their own life's purpose?
Wow. So I think the exercise that we had to do was really great. I think I used to believe that the only thing that's going to stop me from being successful in life is death. I no longer believe that. The most phenomenal thing about living is that we all start dying and living the instant we start existing. No one's immune to that. So I think you should work on leaving your legacy. What is your legacy? What do you want to contribute to the world? What do you want to say, people to say about you when you're gone? So my advice to anyone that's struggling, trying to figure out your purpose, just fast forward to the end and see what you would say and what you would like to be said. And if it's not happening, go to work. Because I think immortality can exist if we leave a legacy. And the legacy is not about you. What I do is not about me. Look, let's have a moment of honesty. If it was up to me, I say this every speech, I would sit on the couch, play my Nintendo Switch, and eat donuts every day and be happy, right? But I don't, because I don't want to deprive the world of the best version of me. I don't want you to deprive the world of the best version of you. If I get up every day and bust my butt so that it's easier for the next person, and they do the same, that has to equal something magical, absolutely magical, because I have nothing else to give. You have nothing else to give. Universe, we've offered you our very best. And so that's what I would say. Fast forward to the end, see where you're at, be honest with it, and if you're not offering it your very, very best, get to work. And it's okay. I think it's a beautiful thing for me to say every day. I'm not done yet. right? So that's what I would offer my advice. And then the last thing I would say is keep swinging. No matter what, keep swinging. You never know when that home run is coming. Take your shots. And if you get bruised and you get banged up, it just means you're human. And if you need a hug, go get a hug. If you need to call a friend and say, I am absolutely sure I'm going crazy, I need you to reverse this, I want everyone in here to know it's never too late to hit the reset button, ever. Thank you.
So, if anyone has a question, I think what we're gonna do is, ooh, Eli. So I think, that's you under your mask, right? So I think what we're gonna do is ask you to come to the microphone, or is the microphone coming to you? I guess we're gonna have you come to the microphone, and we'll do a few minutes of question and answers. This young man just had his bar mitzvah, and he was fantastic.
Congratulations.
Yes. And he's also a musician with the saxophone, correct?
Do you have perfect pitch?
I don't. I bought a perfect pitch program once. I think they still owe me a refund.
That's it? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question?
Yes.
There's
My
three
favorite foods. I'm trying to get fit now because of all the traveling stuff I do, but my favorite 3 foods would be smothered pork chops, gravy, and rice. And I can leave the pork alone, but gravy and rice, and she thinks it's weird, is my absolute favorite food. So I'll go to the store, buy rice, and then just get the gravy in a jar. She said, what else are you gonna eat with that? Nothing. So we have a question here and then some here.
Before you play the tuba, could you show us the parts and tell us what they do? I've never seen one up close.
Oh, when I go over there, I will certainly do that. No problem. Yep, thank you.
Okay. I'm a lover of music, and I've been a lover of music my whole life. A lot of different genres. Doo-wop, rock and roll, jazz, opera, as Michelle knows. And I'm a lover of classical music.
Okay.
And the big question is every time I go to a concert in person, more so than any other time, I think about it a lot. How many young children today have the affinity, have the desire to go and play classical music, as opposed to going to the School of Rock or rock and roll or pop music or whatever they're hearing? And with the tuba, with almost any other instrument, there's so many avenues to pursue. Jazz, rock and roll, whatever it might be. The tuba seems so limiting. And, you think tuba, you think of the marching bands,
Right.
or classical music. I'm kind of an expert on rock and roll. I can't think of a single rock and roll song, and very little jazz other than the New Orleans jazz, the Dixieland, that has a tuba in it. How do you start, and where do you go, step by step?
We've come a long way. Tuba invented in 1835. I think it's the coolest of instruments because it is the youngest of them all. But to answer your question, if you search YouTube, Sam Palafian, he's playing mean tuba on those rock records. If you search Miles Davis, Witch's Brew, but just change the letter, I'm not gonna say that word in here. There's tuba on there, Tommy Johnson playing jazz, Rich Madison, tuba jazz quintet, toured the world, tuba quartet. So I think there is a lot of history being made, but because it's so young, people are just unaware of it. I think there are a whole bunch of, if you cut on your TV, watch The Tonight Show, you'll see the Roots playing on there. He has a sousaphone. So there's nothing we can't do. And when I was on the cover of the American Federation Musician, someone wrote Chrysler's Paganini for violin, Tchaikovsky's violin concerto, and I can play it all. So the tuba, let me put it this way. The trumpet is responsible for 2.5 octaves in the orchestra. The trombone, 2, maybe 2.5. The tuba is responsible for 5. right? So it can do far more. It's just so young that we're just getting started. And like I said earlier, that's the best part of the tuba. Thank you. Great question.
Hi.
Hi, I remember. Hi.
I recently attended another talk that you did at the Boynton Beach Police Department.
Yes.
I went with my job and everything. So I heard a little bit more about your story. And I shared briefly that I also grew up homeless in Florida, in South Florida, and primarily in the Hollywood, Florida area. So I do share a lot of similarities with you, and I felt very moved by your story. Very quickly, when I was younger, I got my first pair of glasses when I was in 6th grade because I found out that I couldn't see, and I didn't know why. And the school had a program, because I did free reduced lunch, they were able to give me a free pair of glasses. So in school, I was known as the girl who had the same pair of glasses for 10 years. But now I'm known as I'm a senior. I go to Lynn University in Boca Raton, and I'm about to be known as the first generation college student in my family, the first one to graduate college. So I wanted to know, what were you known as when you were younger, and what are you known as now?
Wow. So when I was younger, I'm embarrassed to say this, I was known as the big-headed, immature freshman, right? Now I'm known as Ra, or Ra Tuba. Everyone just says, hey, Ra, Richard Antoine White. I got lucky with branding. And if you're wondering about my daily habits, every day I get a multitude of emails of people asking me if I could write about something, or telling me how much my positivity on Facebook, Instagram made their day. Every day. If you want to be my friend on Facebook and Instagram, if you don't like positivity, look the other way. So I think most importantly, I don't know, she may tell you this, I think I'm known outside of titles and names for just being kind. I'm a big teddy man. Sometimes I get sad. She'll tell you. We had a conversation. I said, I'm sad. She says, why? I said, because I think I would do things for people that they wouldn't do for me. And then we had this serious conversation. I said, I would jump in front and take a bullet for a stranger, even if I didn't know him, just because I think it's the right thing to do. And I said, it makes me sad because I don't think everybody would do that for me. But I will stick to what I believe is right.
As you should. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being, hey, yes. So, what?
I want to give you a hug too.
Okay, Elon, it's your turn.
Quick question. Have you played any other instruments in your life?
Yes, because I have a DM. I explained this, not a DMA. When you look at most terminal degrees in music, 99% of the people have what's called a DMA, Doctorate of Musical Arts. I have a DM. Only 2 places in this country offer them, Indiana and Florida State here. In London, you get like knighted if you get a DM. So I've had to play every instrument. When people ask me, do I play other instruments? I go, I only get paid to play one. Great question.
Hi. First of all, I absolutely loved your book. I read it in one afternoon. I just couldn't put it down. So anybody who hasn't, I highly recommend it. Very inspiring. You have such a great attitude, and you seem to have an answer that gets you through any situation, that keeps you going, and it's certainly a wonderful, upbeat attitude. Today, what gets you down? What's a struggle?
Man, I'm afraid to put my wife on the spot, but there are a couple of things that, because I feel like we're family here, I don't mind sharing with you. So a few things that really push my buttons is, I have family members that are embarrassed and are saying that what happened to me didn't happen. And so I have to deal with it, and it's very troublesome. Mm-hmm. And they want to say, oh, you had 20 houses to choose from. I'm like, yeah, I had 20 houses to choose from, and I just decided to sleep on the streets, right? So that troubles me. And then the other thing that troubles me is that we're choosing not to make a difference in our country sometimes, and we can. So I get very upset by labeling and stereotyping, because I think we're very blessed to distribute help in this country. If you need help, here you go, level 5. If you don't achieve at level 5, you must be lazy. You must not be applying yourself. But we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Maybe the next person needs level 7 or level 8 help, and then they can achieve. We have too many myths in this country. Like, you just pick yourself up by the boots and strap. Well, I don't have boots or a strap, so what do I do next? Right? Oh, you just work as hard as you can and it's gonna work out. Well, I know plenty of people that's worked as hard as they can and it didn't work out. We need that village. We need that uplifting of all of us, because that's just the way it's supposed to be. And that gets me down sometimes. But my biggest struggle, aside from the things that I'm dealing with writing my book, is that we're all gonna wake up some days and be disappointed in the world we live in. But if we keep chipping at it every day, each of us, we're gonna reverse that. And I guess I struggle with the fact that we could be better, and sometimes we're just not.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So, would you be so kind as to please play tuba for us? But before you do, can you tell us a little bit about the tuba you are playing?
Yes. Okay, so the gentleman here asked a really great question. I call this my baby tuba. This is my F tuba. I'm gonna make you all tuba experts tonight,
Wait,
really.
how much does the baby tuba weigh?
The baby tuba weighs about 30, 40 pounds. The other one's a lot bigger. They're made in the Netherlands by hand. It's handmade. If you check the news, my tubas were stolen from my locked office at school a few years ago. I was in tears, I was crying. I guess there was a professional tree climber, climbed the building and came in my office and took my one-of-a-kind tubas. At that point, there was only 3 of them in the country. So that was really sad, but I have my F tuba here. What I want to teach you all tonight is that when you think about tubas, the closer to the letter A the tuba is, the bigger it is. So let's imagine the letter A. The next letter is B. So if it's a B flat tuba, it's the biggest tuba they make. The next letter is C. If it's a C tuba, it's the second biggest tuba they make. And then we have to skip A, B, C, D. There's not a D. E and E flat. E flat is the soprano tuba, and then F. So the further away you get from A, the smaller the tuba gets. So you should be tuba experts. The tuba invented in 1835 is the youngest of brass instruments. This particular tuba, Michelle, can you hold this for me? Just so I can. I'm gonna try to, can I? Okay, thank you. So I have 4 valves here, which allows me to play the chromatic scale. And I can go all the way down. And then because it's tuba, I have all this tubing in the back, which you can't see. I have a 5th valve here, which allows me to play all the low notes. So I won't do any of this today, but just because it's fun, and when I play for kids, I show them that I can play usually what people think tuba can do, probably. That's what everyone thinks about tuba, right? But just like Tubby, the tuba just wants to play the melody. I also, in my spare time, I like to have fun with the tuba, so I do something called multiphonics, which is playing the tuba and singing at the same time. So I can do a little doo-wop by myself, right? And then what makes this instrument really cool, which all the young kids go crazy, sometimes I just beatbox on the tuba.
So, by the way, this is on the piano, we have Christopher Toth. I was wondering, right, Chris, we're very lucky he plays with us on the high holidays, and he's here on hopefully one Friday night a month, and I think you're on for Purim. God help you. Right?
So the piece I will be playing is called Arioso. It's by Barbara York. She recently passed away, but when I called her to say if I could use her music for my soundtrack, she's like, oh, I'm so blessed, thank you, yes. So I thought it'd be nice to pay tribute to her, and also to probably give you a taste of what you probably don't think tuba can do, is just play beautiful. I would like for everyone to use their imagination, open up your heart, and just imagine the things that are important to you, the kindness things I talked about, just the fact that you've been given a ticket to this game called life. And whether it's a good day or bad day, I believe that life is fair to everyone because life is fair to everyone because it's also unkind to everyone. So I also think that as you listen to this piece, make it personal, adapt your story, and see if the tuba can speak to you in a way that you never thought it could. This is Arioso by Barbara York.
So I just want to thank you, Richard, so much again for giving up a week of your life to come to Boca Raton, Florida. We've done so much this week, including going to the Boynton Beach Police Department and spending Tuesday night with our religious school students, and last night at the Spady Museum in Delray, and then tonight here, and then I know tomorrow we have a fantastic lunch planned. So anyway, if you don't already have his book, again, it's called I'm Possible. You can get it on Amazon very easily. And and he was going to say one more thing, and then we have a lovely reception waiting for us. Thank you again to everyone at Bethel, all the staff for all of their support and love, and for welcoming Richard.
Okay, so my wife is going to kill me, but I got to tell you about the Raw Tuba Ranch. So this is what the proceeds of the book is going to. I'm going to have a residence, a ranch in New Mexico. It's our home. It's going to be a stage. And my dream for the Raw Tuba Ranch was just 24/7 ramen noodle, chili, and beer. Where if you're having a bad day in Florida, come on down to New Mexico, have some ramen, have some chili, have some beer. It has since morphed in the city, thought this was such a great idea. They acknowledged me with a day. And I'm going to have the Raw Tuba Ranch now with a music school and an art school, still a stage, ramen noodle and chili, 24/7. I hope to see you there. Thank you for a beautiful evening.
Thank you, everyone. We hope you'll join us for the reception outside.